Please note that the following story does contain some graphic details and visuals that may be distressing to some viewers. In yet another case of gender-based violence in the country, a video widely circulated on social media shows a man brutally stabbing a woman at the Peninsula University of Technology. Now, this incident took place yesterday outside one of the institution's residences in full view of bystanders. The video, which runs for at least 2 minutes without security in sight, turned extremely bloody, and once the man was disarmed, he was attacked by angry students before being apprehended by security. Let's speak now to GBV Monitor South Africa Executive Director Umogolo Daunyane Mnguni. Very good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time. This video showing the stabbing doing the rounds on social media, a very gruesome attack. What went through your mind when you saw this video?
Hello, Mpho, and good morning to your listeners. You know, it's such a sad thing to witness, logging into social media and seeing a woman being violated in that manner. But the first thing that came to mind when I saw that was really to say, thank goodness for social media, because had we not had someone who was taking a video at that time and then sharing it, we would be asking so many questions. We would be casting aspersions on whether this incident has indeed taken place. And we would have to then go down that rabbit hole of a victim or a survivor having the onus of proving that something like this has happened to them. So we really do extend our condolences to the family, not our condolences, pardon me. We really do sympathize with the family of the woman who has been violated in this manner, and we really hope that justice will prevail in this instance.
Yeah, in the hope that justice prevails, this brutal attack again has served, I suppose, as a stark reminder of the urgent need for heightened security measures on campuses and student accommodations across the country, and of course just speaking to what educational spaces should be, sanctuaries free from violence and harm. What do you think needs to happen when it comes to security in universities, in student accommodations?
When you look at our quarterly crime statistics report, we have seen, over the past year that universities come up in the top 5 of places where GBV takes place. So the data is already telling us that universities are no longer safe spaces for young women. Now, when we have a conversation about heightened security, we are now putting in measures that come in after the fact. And that isn't always helpful, right? Because what we need to have in place is interventions that prevent this kind of incidents taking place. And we need universities to start, stepping up to say, what do these models look like? What interventions should we be putting in place to prevent these kind of incidents happening? Do we have, training once universities enter the university, or people who enter our spaces that know that this is a zero tolerance space for GBV, right? But when we're speaking about heightened security, we're talking about really, in this case, investigating what had happened leading up to this, stabbing, this assault that has now happened, because this happened outside. Was there an altercation inside the student residence before, what we then saw at the end? And we need security to respond at a far, quicker rate, before people then, using mob justice or whatever else they feel should be happening at the time.
Yeah, we'll soon be going into 16 days of activism. That campaign will get underway. And ahead of that, this is a reminder of how gender-based violence remains a scourge in our society. How do we stop it? What's required from the different role players, especially looking at how progress in terms of tangible change appears limited.
You know, it is always so interesting when I get that question of what should be happening to end GBV. And it simply boils down to, one factor, that it shouldn't be happening in the first place. And men or perpetrators do it because they know that they can get away with it. When you look at our criminal justice system, we already know that we have an 8%, verdict that is positive, for victims and survivors. So when you look at the crime stats and you see, 10,000, 40,000 women who have been, murdered or assaulted, we need to keep in mind that only 8% of those reported cases are going to end up in a verdict. So we have a systemic problem in how the criminal justice system responds. But the second factor that we also need to start talking about is social behavior change programs. This is something that our president has consistently spoken about when he speaks about GBV, whether it is at our SONA, whether it is at the GBV summit that we have annually. So once we can figure out how to really inculcate and foster behavior that, first of all, respects and acknowledges the dignity of women and children, we wouldn't be having such a high rate of GBV. So I think it really boils down to those social behavior changes targeting young men and boys.
Yeah, especially the persistent patriarchal norms, which continue to be a drawback in curbing GBV, and not much is being done here to accentuate the role that it can play in curbing gender-based violence.
That's correct. When we're speaking about patriarchal norms, we're speaking about, the language that we use when we speak about GBV. We're speaking about culture and traditional norms that become a vehicle that enables GBV to take place. It really is, quite a broad issue, but with very intersecting problematic manifestations of patriarchy.
And very lastly, as we wrap our discussion up, of course, it talks a lot about policing and judicial reforms that need to be enacted, which are long overdue when it comes to combating gender-based violence. I mean, how far are we? Where are we standing with all of that?
Well, when we're speaking about policing, do we have such officials that are responsible in a victim-centric approach when we're speaking about access to justice? Are women believed once they enter a police station? Do they have public trust in the system that it will respond in a sympathetic manner to a particular grievance? We know that because we have victims and survivors who reach out to us saying, please assist us, I cannot get help at a particular police station. So the answer is no. Do we have a SAPS that treats GBV as a crisis, that really treats it as a crisis and must respond far more efficiently? The answer is no. We still have a DNA backlog. We know we have corrupt officials. We see that in the IPID complaints that are made. Do we have faith that once this incident is reported, it will be seen towards its end? We have a number of cases that women are dropping out of, J88 forms that go missing, dockets that go missing. So we really have a system that doesn't enable women to come forward, and once they do, to remain there, right? So these are the issues that need to be addressed before we can start talking about, do we have the correct kind of policing to address our GBV crisis? The answer for me would be no, and we need to start having a serious conversation with, the Minister of Policing, with, the Commissioner of Policing, to say these are the kind of interventions that we are looking for in terms of the criminal justice system being more responsive to women and children to be protected from GBV.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. GBV Monitor South Africa Executive Director, Omogolo Daonyana Mguni, talking to us there about the student who was brutally stabbed outside CPUT in the Western Cape, a student residence there.